I'm Don Benton. I've lived in Clark County nearly 40 years now. I've raised 4 children here with my lovely wife, Mary. We've been married 40 years, and we have 4 children. They're all grown. They all went to school here, and fortunately, they all still live here. And that's one of the things I'm working towards, is to make sure that our kids don't have to move away to be able to buy a home. And it's getting more difficult every day to buy one here in Clark County. I have owned and operated 3 companies, started them from scratch, built them, and sold them. I served in the state legislature for 22 years. I ran for the House in '94, and then in '96 went over to the Senate, served you in the Senate for 5 terms, and finished my last term out and did not run for re-election in 2016 when I went to work for President Trump. And I went to DC and ran a federal agency after I helped with transition for the new administration. I then stayed on with him at his request and managed the United States Selective Service, which is the agency that is responsible for providing emergency manpower to the Department of Defense when Congress and the President of the United States declare a national emergency. And so that's what I did for the last 4 years. And when I came home, the state legislature was busy passing, I think it was 17 new taxes. We're just now finding out about some of them because they're going to an effect this week. You're reading about them. And one of them was a doubling of the inheritance tax. And so I got busy and went after that, and it was the one tax we were able to kill. They passed every other tax in 2021, but we were able to kill the doubling of the inheritance tax. And then some folks came to me and said, we've got a leadership vacuum in Clark County. You've worked there. You know what's going on. Would you consider running for the county council? I considered it. I talked to my family about it, and we made a decision to do it. So if you vote for Don Benton, you get experience, experience, experience. Not only in the private sector, but in the government at all 3 levels, local, federal, and state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Dick Rylander.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, I am Richard to my wife, or Dick Rylander to everybody else. I am currently the Clark County Councilor for District 5. I was appointed on May 3rd of this year to finish out the balance. And of course, I am running for election. And I'm before you this evening to ask you to renew my appointment for another 4 years. But why should you do that? First thing I'd like to say is that about 34 years ago, my youngest daughter was in 2nd grade. She came home from school one day, and my wife said, well, how did school go today? She said, well, teacher asked us who the 2 most important people in our lives are. And my wife says, well, what'd you say? She said, my sister, because she's a great athlete, she went on to swim the top 10 in the nation in the butterfly at the collegiate level. And because she's a good athlete and she's a good student. And she says, the second person is my dad. And my wife says, 2nd grader, why your dad? She says, because he always does what he says he's going to do. That was true 34 years ago, and it's true today. But rather than tell you, like the other candidates have this evening, on what I would do if I was elected, can I share a few things in my 2.5 months that I think I have done to show you, give you some indication? So just today, we came to agreement on a position on the I-5 bridge and the light rail. I took the position that we should be perfectly, explicitly clear, no light rail in Clark County unless the voters said yes. And we changed that language today to reflect that, and that'll be coming out the next couple of days. So that's in the can. I introduced a resolution which was signed by the council members indicating that that the flaws in the Oregon low-income tolling project made the report flawed. So we took a stance against that. I worked with staff to identify more 5-acre lots that we could split in the upper northern county area. I've worked on signing new guidelines for improving land use. I'm working with the Columbia River Economic Development Council, the Southwest Washington Jobs Council, and I'm right now involved in researching the county fees and going through those with great detail. So those are some of the things that I've done in 2.5 months. Think what we could do in 4 more years.
Thank you, Dick. Keep the mic in your hand. Now, the first time earlier tonight that I asked my question about budget and finance, I didn't do a very good job asking the question. I thought about it, after I did such a poor job of asking the question, I thought about not asking it again tonight. But I've known both of you for quite a while, and I just cannot imagine not asking you two about budget and finance, because I think you guys have spent a lot of time making sure that our elected leaders and community leaders spent our tax dollars wisely. So I'm going to let you talk about budget and finance at the county level. Go ahead, Dick, you're first. How can the county be more efficient with their money?
Well, the first thing we have to do is understand what money we get and where it goes. We know right now that out of the property taxes that we all pay, I don't know about your housing property value, but ours just went up $190,000. And I expect there will be at least some additional taxes depending on what the nature of those are. But understanding what the county gets about 9.7% of our property tax dollars. Another 5.6% goes to county roads. So all in, a little over 15% for the county. Most people think the county is flush with cash. The reality is it really isn't. And when you look at the range of services that the county has to provide, then that's a challenge. They've also not taken the 1% annual increase a number of times in recent years. So what I have in front of me are the printouts for the revenue and the expenditures for the last 4 years of budgets. I've already started going over them line by line to understand what they are and what they're about. I've also asked for a complete breakdown on all the fees for all the different departments throughout the county so that we can dissect those to see what we can do to do a better job at working with. So I don't have the answers at the moment, but I want to point out to you that I'm taking the steps to get the information to be able to share with you so that collectively together we can find better ways to use our money and not have to raise your taxes.
Thank you, Dick. And Don?
Don't
make me repeat the question because I'm doing it very poorly tonight.
No, that's fine, Ken. Thank you very much. By the way, thank you for doing this tonight. Appreciate you and your time. I've been dealing with government budgets for a long time. First, I started dealing with private budgets, and then when I was elected to the state legislature in '94, had to start, and believe it or not, you remember back that far, the state budget was, we used to wear buttons around that said not greater than 17 billion. You know what it is today? More than double that. Yeah, pretty amazing. But you get very familiar with budgets. When you work on different committees in the legislature, you learn state budgets. State budgets are constructed almost the same way as county budgets are, and federal budgets. But I ran a department at the county, so I'm very familiar with county budgets. In fact, when I took over the department, it had a $42 million budget, and it was bankrupt. It was spending, I think, $42 million a year and losing money and going out of business. In fact, we're under a federal lawsuit because they weren't able to do the job in terms of protecting the environment. So I cut the budget, $8 million, and started doing our job. And guess what? We won environmental awards. We had the most green schools of any county in Washington State, even more than King County. And yet we did it with $8 million less than we had before. So it can be done. There's a lot of waste in government budgets. We're doing a lot of things we shouldn't be doing, like giving millions of dollars in bonuses to county employees, which has just happened recently, one of the first actions that Dick took when he was appointed. And we shouldn't be giving money away. We should be deciding where our priorities are, right? We need to focus on what's important: public safety, county roads. These are the critical things that the county is supposed to give their money towards, and that's where they should go. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Keep the mic, Don. Our next question, I'm going to go back to the transportation issue. and specifically the I-5 bridge replacement project and the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program team's locally preferred alternative. Take your pick. There's too many elements. We could sit here till midnight and talk about all the different elements of this project. And take your pick on what elements you want to discuss or whatever you want to discuss about this project, and give us your thoughts.
Thank you. Well, many of you may recall I was one of the primary driving forces behind killing the bridge and the tolls and the light rail the last time it came around. And this thing that was handed out to you tonight is a little bit premature. Apparently, I haven't checked my email because it doesn't have a response for me, but I can assure you that I am anti-toll and anti-light rail, and I think everybody that knows me knows that. Jim, I'll get to this tonight and respond to this little questionnaire, but don't hand it out until I answer the question. The fact of the matter is, I knew when they came back around they were going to do the same thing over again. Ken, you and I have discussed this many times. They want to lower the bridge because light rail can't climb a grade. If you lower that bridge, you will cut off 4 companies that employ hundreds of people in very high-paying jobs, and all 4 of them happen to be on our side of the river, right in the Columbia Business Center. They won't be able to get their stuff past the bridge. The bridge will be too low. There goes all of those great jobs and all of that economic development. And by the way, it doesn't only hurt them, it will destroy economic development for any company like them for the next 300 years. There will be no economic development upriver because they won't be able to get the stuff they build downriver. So it's crazy to lower that bridge just to accommodate light rail. We don't want light rail in Clark County. It's a conduit. It's a conduit for crime. It's a conduit for homelessness. My son rode it for 2 years. Believe me, the horror stories he has told about how unsafe that is the last thing we want to do is bring light rail into Clark County.
Thank you, Don. And by the way, Dick referenced the county passing the resolution this morning, and you can read about it on clarkcountytoday.com. I left Dick out of the story because I was doing this candidate forum tonight, so I couldn't stand the thought of giving him an extra platform in the same day. But now you have a platform, Dick.
So, we all look at the I-5 bridge and say, yes, it's old, but it's still durable and it can still get the job done for a heck of a long time. We really need a third bridge, particularly that will be on the west side that can function more from a truck traffic, port to port type of situation. But specific to the I-5 bridge, it is perfectly clear, I believe, based on Ken's comments and what we signed off this morning, the county council took an absolute stand of no to light rail from Clark County, period. If you actually go back and review the tapes and the recordings from last night's meeting, as well as today, I am perfectly comfortable you'll hear what I said on the topic. The answer on tolls is the absolutely no. And that's why I actually went through the report from Portland, which is supposed to come up with a way to compensate low-income people for tolls. It's a disaster report. We wrote a resolution that I authored that sent back over to Portland telling them exactly what we think from the county council. So from an I-5 bridge standpoint, would it be nice to have a nice, clean bridge that allows appropriate traffic for a reasonable amount of money? Terrific, but we've got other issues, and we've got to take care of the toll situation and the light rails first and foremost.
Thank you so much, Dick. Okay, let's move on to, I'm going to return to my Board of Health question. Obviously, we all hope that we're, easing out of the pandemic and we're in an endemic and everything else, but nevertheless, it's dominated our lives in the last 3 years. And the Board of Health, Clark County Clark County Public Health Department and the Board of Health's role in that has been forefront for the last 3 years. And as a Clark County councilor, you would also serve on the Board of Health, as I explained earlier. And we talked about the word supervises, that the Clark County Board of Health supervises the Public Health Department and the Public Health Director. and that there's some disagreement over the interpretation of that word. How do you interpret the role of the Board of Health in supervising the Department of Public Health and the Public Health Director?
So to be clear, the charter says that the county manager, Kathleen Otto, and she's a super gal, oversees and manages the health department. We act as a board of health, and our job is to ask questions and push in policy areas. Now, I don't know if you know this, and you may think this is good or bad, but my career has been in pharmaceutical biotech. You may not like some of those aspects, but I can tell you I have an understanding of health. I taught U.S. health at the graduate level at University of Portland for 6 years. I do understand the U.S. healthcare system, and I understand medicine. I have had multiple meetings and discussions with staff at the county health department, asking questions, pushing for information, including responses to questions that come from the public that have gone unanswered. We're starting to get some of those responses now. So what I have been actually doing, not gonna do, what I am doing is dealing firsthand with them, working through the county manager, asking questions, pushing information, making sure that things are clarified, and also making clear personal points of view. For instance, saying that we should give COVID vaccinations to 6-month-olds is beyond comprehension for me. So I understand choice, but some of these decisions are pushed down from the federal to the state level, and as a board member, I'm actually pushing back and keeping an eye because of my background, which I hope will bring benefit, and which is background that none of the other counselors happens to have.
Thank you very much, Dick. Don, do you need me to repeat the question? I got a little wordy when I did it that time, so.
No, I think I'm okay.
Okay,
Thanks.
there you go.
The question is, what does the word supervise mean? That was the question, as I recall. The word supervise means you're in charge. You manage it. You make sure it does what it's supposed to do. That's what supervisors do, right? Don't they make sure you do what you're supposed to do? So that's what the Board of County Councilors does, is they make sure that the Board of Health and the County Health Department does what they're supposed to do, right? And who determines that? Well, the Board of Health. And as a member of the Board of Health, I will never vote to force you to take a vaccine. I will never vote. I will never vote to force you to wear a mask. In fact, I will never vote to force you to do anything. The state law already tells you you have to pay taxes. So I don't have to vote to make you do that, right? So, look, we get to make decisions about our own health as long as we're not hurting other people. So what are we going to impose all of these mandates and requirements on people for? We need to be focusing on helping citizens, not impeding their progress, not helping the government close down their business. The county should have sued Jay Inslee when he started closing down businesses. We need to start using some government-paid lawyers on our side to fight the government-paid lawyers on the other side. And that's what we'll do at the county. We're not going to just roll over to Jay Inslee's illegal mandates.
Thank you, Don. You know, something that Dick said is going to cause me to go off script here. And if it's a disaster, I'll take responsibility for it. But I'm going to go off script. I remember when we voted on the county area residents voted on the home rule charter. The thing that I editorialized on, I was very uneasy with the county manager receiving, more responsibility, if you will, than the county council. And I was very uneasy with that because we don't elect the county manager. Now, many candidates have mentioned Kathleen Otto. I have no reason not to have confidence in Kathleen Otto. So this isn't a reflection on my opinion on Kathleen Otto. It appears she's doing a wonderful job. But Dick, I think if I listen to your answer, you talked about how possibly it's not really the Board of Health that supervises the public health director and department. It's actually the county manager. and I'm not putting words in your mouth, but it takes me back to that conversation about the structure of Clark County government and the role of the county manager versus the role of the county councilors. And Don, I'll give you the first opportunity to amplify on this, articulate on this. And is it working? Is there a problem there?
Very serious problem. The government, the Democrats have broken our local government. That's fact. They've broken it with the charter. They've made everything nonpartisan. Look, the seat might be nonpartisan. I'm not. I'm a conservative, okay? And we should know what people are when they're running for public office. And we shouldn't let them hide behind this nonpartisan label, okay? Because there is partisanship in politics. Republicans do think differently than Democrats. And so it's important for us to know where you're coming from if you want to lead us, if you want to speak for us. So the government, then they passed a number of other charters to the amendment. They controlled the charter process. The Republican Party was kind of absent, you know, in the process. I don't know what happened to them. I wasn't here. I was working for the president. But they've made a lot of changes to the local government under this charter that is really empowers the bureaucrats. It really does. It gives a government worker way more authority than I think the average citizen ever intended to give a government bureaucrat. And it has kind of tied the hands a lot of the county council. Now, the fact is, members of the county council can put forward amendments for the charter. So I'm not sure why members of the county council haven't done that in the last 3 or 4 years, or if they have, why they haven't been successful. But that's one of the things we'll get busy on, I will get busy on right away, is fixing the governance structure so that it's responsible to the people again, okay, rather than depending on a bureaucrat doing the right thing, because that doesn't happen very often.
Thank you, Don. Dick, are you comfortable with the question? Do you need me to try to repeat it?
Well, let me see if I can
Okay.
pull it out. So the way the charter is set up, I've lived here 2 different times. First time for 14 years, and the most recent time for 17 years. So we've been there 31 years, 2 different times. So I saw it before, and I saw it after. And when I saw the charter system going in, one of the concerns I have, or had at the time, which still exists, is that we stepped from 3 commissioners to 5 counselors, but a growing county, that could be okay in and of itself. But the entire process that was built out has made such drastic changes, moving to a point where we cannot run and directly manage. As a county councilor, I cannot go directly to a county employee. I have to go through the county manager. Now that's worked out fine so far. No stones thrown at all. Kathleen Otto's done a terrific job. Somebody has to organize everything, but I have to go through her to get anything that I need from anybody. And that takes a bit of time, et cetera. If I had it to do otherwise, would we make the change and move back to the counselors having responsibilities? I think I would. However, have we looked across the river to Portland? Because Portland is discussing doing what right now? Moving to the exact type of charter system that Clark County is using and leaving what they have behind. So is it broken? It needs work? Yes. I don't know why they haven't put charter changes before. This last time around, there were 15 Democrats who pushed through a number of different changes, which actually compounded a number of the issues. On top of that, right now, some of us are working on writing the rebuttal to some of the ones that the Charter Committee has put on for November. You'll be seeing that coming out on a website in the very near future.
Thank you very much. Remember, we have 2 more rounds left, and I didn't ask you guys specifically about personal property crimes, about the Sheriff's Department, stuff like that. So you're skilled enough, you can fit it into these last 2 rounds if you'd like. But Dick, we'll let you go first in the rebuttal round. The floor is open. You can comment on something that's been discussed, or you could take it whatever direction you want. This is the rebuttal round.
Sure. Oh, it almost sounds like we've cut one round out. That's all right.
No, we didn't. We have the off-script question.
Fit you in, okay.
Yeah, so you're getting the same amount of rounds that the other candidates got.
Sure. Mr. Benton and I have great respect for the work that Don has done over the years and the work that the value that he's brought, absolutely. He did make a comment about the retention bonuses, the retention payment. Let me take a few moments and address that because it was dropped right when we came in. The council voted 5-0 to say yes. Well, why would they do that? Where did the money come from? Yes, it's about $3.1 million spread over about 1,500 county employees. It was presented to each of the councilors, and I'm presuming the way it was presented to me was the way it was presented to everybody else. The pitch was that coming back from COVID, there were a number of people that chose not to want to come back physically in the office. They'd gone through some losses and attrition of people. They have a number of people who are in the retirement age range. They were starting to lose some of those. They have certain departments right now, the elections department and others, that can't even open the doors because they don't have enough people. So what she was asking for was to use one-time ARPA funds over a one-year period to try to get some of the hemorrhaging to slow down. And when I look at that, what I looked at was your time has value. When you go down to get permits or to get information or you need to conduct business, you have to be able to do that on your time, not their time. And if they don't have the people to help you get that work done, to get those permits taken care of, that has much bigger costs than the small amount of money that comes out of the one-time federal ARPA funds that did not come out of a local budget.
Thank you, Dick. And Don, this is the rebuttal round. You can basically take it whatever direction you'd like.
Thanks very much. I think what you've seen, and by the way, I appreciate Dick. I've already said if Dick wins the primary, I'm 100% behind him, okay? Because we got to be united to win this thing, right? So I'm not going to take my ball and go home. I'm going to back the Republican, right? Whatever Republican comes forward is going to be the one I get out and work for, whether that's me or not, because we know we've got to get a Republican majority on that council, right? But the primary difference here is understanding and being there. After 20 years in state government, I got to tell you, I don't trust government bureaucrats. I'm not going to believe them when they tell me I should give away $3 million of the taxpayers' money just so they'll keep coming to work. My response would be, fire the ones that don't come to work, because there's hundreds of people in this county that would love to have that county job, okay? Because it pays really well and the benefits are really great, right? So why do we have to keep giving bonuses on top of the great benefits and the great pay that they're already getting? Now, I think there's an exception to that, and that's our deputies. They're not paid properly, okay? Right? They're way underpaid. So we have to do fair by them. But we shouldn't be giving the money away to everybody on a blanket giveaway program.
Thank you, Don. Well, we've reached the closing statement round, and like I said, you guys got the same number of rounds as the other candidates, so I've tried to be as fair as possible, but give you an opportunity to close this evening however you want, and if you didn't get an opportunity to talk about law enforcement or the sheriff's office or homelessness or whatever that you didn't get an opportunity to talk about, give you the opportunity to do so now. I think it's Dick's turn to go first.
Character and work ethic make a difference. I work very hard at what I do. I do what I say I'm going to do. I look to solve problems by breaking things down into manageable pieces. Let me give you an example. When we talk about affordability of housing, which didn't come up in general tonight, I look at affordability from a number of different aspects. What affects affordability? Well, one of the things that affects affordability is good paying jobs. We have better paying jobs, you have a greater chance of affording the residents that you want. But beyond that, we look at land use, we look at labor, we look at materials, we look at regulations. I take these and break them into buckets and then say, what is it that we collectively, locally, as a decision-making group and body can actually do that's going to make a difference and help us improve affordability. That's how I go about thinking through these things. I am a father and a husband of 51 years. November will be 52. We have 4 grown children, 12 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren. I've also been the Clark County State Committeeman for the last year and a half and involved deeply. And if anybody questions whether I'm conservative or not, we should have a sidebar discussion. I don't think anybody's going to question that. So from that standpoint, I'm here because I want to make sure that my family and your family can have a great place, to have good paying jobs, to work, to play and enjoy life, and to be safe. So I'd like your vote.
Thank you very much. Don Benton.
Thank you again for coming out. Thank you to many of you who have supported me all of these years. And I hope that you'll choose to support me again. And what you'll get if you'll vote for Don Benton for County Council is someone that knows what's going on, someone that's been around the block, is not going to let the government employees pull the wool over their eyes or talk them into voting something that's going to hurt you down the road. That's not going to happen. I've been there. I get it. I pay attention. I will work hard to stop the bad things. No light rail, no tolls, no homeless camps. And I will work hard to bring jobs to this county. The number one problem we have with this whole light rail, tolls, bridge stuff is that we got 60, 70,000 people a day going across the river for a job. Let's provide a job for them right here at Clark County, right? That's what we need to do. And that's what I will work toward, is economic development. We pay a lot of money to the Columbia River Economic Development Council. Guess what? They haven't been very successful. So maybe we should look at paying somebody else to do that job, right? So there's a lot of things we can do differently because what we've been doing isn't working. And I'm willing to step up and do things differently because I'm not afraid about what the paper might write about me. And I ask for your support to help me lead Clark County back into prosperity again. Thank you very much.
By the way, Don wasn't talking about Clark County today when he said doesn't care what the paper says about him. Ladies and gentlemen, Don Benton and Dick Rylander, candidates for County Council District 5. Thank you very much. And I will repeat that Sue Marshall and Rick Torres are also candidates for District 5. You can find out information about them in the voters' pamphlet.